Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling the huge world of technology.
Huge is an understatement.
Right, we're talking how it's changing everything.
Not just changing, I'd say shaping the present and the future.
I like that, shaping. And to get a handle on all this, we dug deep into some sources.
Including, of course, the impact of technology, shaping the present and future, from the ENG Podcast. Super interesting stuff.
It really was. Okay, so get this. One thing that blew my mind, they were talking about how healthcare is shifting. Like, big time.
Yeah, they said from reactive to preventative.
Right. So instead of waiting till we're sick,
Technology could help us stay healthy proactively.
like AI catching diseases before we even have symptoms. Crazy, right?
It is pretty wild when you think about it. Personalized medicine taken to a whole new level.
Seriously. Okay, but zooming out a bit, it's not just healthcare, is it?
Oh, definitely not. Tech is everywhere. Pervasive, some might say.
Absolutely. I mean, we wake up to it, we connect with people through it.
Learn, work, shop, entertain ourselves. It's woven into the fabric of our lives.
Right. Like this morning, alarm on my phone, checked messages, even did a quick language lesson online,
Yeah.
all before coffee.
It's become so ingrained in our routines, we almost don't even notice it anymore.
But the ENG podcast made a point that really stuck with me. It's not just about convenience.
Yeah, they argued it's driving massive economic shifts, too.
Totally. Think about how we shop now. Amazon, online retailers, boom.
And the whole financial world's been turned upside down. Fintech apps, mobile banking, it's a revolution.
It is. So we've got this tech-driven present, but what about the future? What's on the horizon?
Well, according to the ENG podcast, there are a few key technologies that are already shaping what's next.
Okay, hit me with them. Which ones are poised to really change things?
They highlighted artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, the Internet of Things, and renewable energy tech.
Oh man, AI. I mean, we hear about it constantly, but what's the real impact going to be?
Well, it's already being used in so many ways. From customer service chatbots.
To self-driving cars? I still can't wrap my head around those.
Right. But one of the most promising applications is in healthcare.
Like that early disease detection we were talking about.
Exactly. AI could analyze medical images, genetic data, all sorts of things to spot potential problems early on.
That's incredible. Talk about potentially saving lives.
And it's not just healthcare. AI could revolutionize business, finance, even creative fields.
Wow, so it's really about augmenting human capability, not replacing it.
Exactly. It's a tool to help us do things better, faster, and smarter.
Okay, now blockchain? Most people just think Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, right?
True, but it's so much bigger than that.
The ENG podcast really hammered that home.
Yeah.
So break it down for us. What IS blockchain's about?
It's all about trust and verification, using cryptography to create tamper-proof records.
Cryptography. Sounds intense.
It's basically super complex math, but the point is you get a secure, transparent history of any transaction.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. So not just for money, but for anything we need to track and verify.
Exactly. Think about supply chains, voting systems, even proving the authenticity of artwork.
Wow, it's like a digital fingerprint for everything. Super cool.
Right. And then there's the Internet of Things, or IoT for short.
This one always felt a bit sci-fi to me, like my fridge talking to my coffee maker.
Uh-huh. Well, it's not quite that far off. The ENG podcast used the example of smart homes.
Yeah, they talked about how all these devices can communicate and work together.
So your thermostat could adjust the temperature based on your location. Your lights could turn on automatically when you get home.
Okay, that's pretty neat. But is it just about convenience at home?
Not at all. IoT has huge implications for industries like healthcare, transportation, even agriculture.
So we could be talking sensors monitoring crops, wearable tech tracking our health, cities managing traffic flow in real time.
It's about connecting the physical world to the digital world in ways we're only just beginning to explore.
Mind-blowing. Okay, last one on our list, renewable energy tech. I mean, this is huge EE, right?
Absolutely crucial. With climate change being such a pressing issue, these technologies are essential for a sustainable future.
The ENG podcast highlighted the usual suspects: solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles. But what about the cutting-edge stuff?
Well, they talked about breakthroughs in battery technology, which is key for storing renewable energy.
Right, because the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow.
Exactly. And they mentioned advances in things like smart grids, which can manage energy distribution more efficiently.
Sounds like we're on the verge of a real energy revolution. Okay, so we've covered some incredible technologies.
Technologies with the potential to change the world for better or for worse.
And that brings up a crucial point. what about the potential downsides of all this progress?
Right, because it's not all sunshine and roses, is it? There are some serious questions we need to ask.
Exactly. I mean, for every amazing breakthrough, there's a potential dark side,
And the ENG podcast didn't shy away from that. They dug into some of the big concerns.
like data privacy, for one. It seems like every day there's another story about a data breach or our information being misused.
It's a real concern. The more connected we become, the more vulnerable we are.
And then there's the digital divide. Not everyone has equal access to technology or the skills to use it effectively.
Absolutely. It's creating a gap between those who have access and those who don't.
And what about our growing reliance on technology? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's a tricky one. I mean, it can be incredibly helpful and convenient, but it can also make us dependent and maybe even a little lazy.
Right, like if we can't remember a simple phone number because it's stored in our contacts.
Or we get lost without GPS. It's like we're outsourcing parts of our brains to our devices.
That's a little scary when you think about it.
Mhm.
So how do we navigate all of this? How do we harness the benefits of technology while minimizing the risks?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. And that's what we'll be diving into in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. We'll be right back after a short break.
Stay tuned. Yeah, it's a tough question for sure. How do we make sure tech is a force for good?
That's really what it comes down to, right?
And the ENG podcast, they actually offered some really solid advice, not just doom and gloom, but real steps we can take.
Okay, I'm all ears. What do they suggest?
Well, first and foremost, we gotta stay informed.
Easy to say, hard to do sometimes. The tech world moves so fast.
I hear you, it can be overwhelming. But they make a good point. The more we understand, the better choices we can make.
It's not just blindly accepting the latest gadget or app, but actually understanding what it does, how it works.
Exactly, being mindful, you know?
Yeah, I actually started doing that recently. Making a point to read up on the tech I use, even listen to more podcasts like this one.
It's fascinating stuff once you dig in, isn't it?
It really is. And I feel like the more I learn about one thing, the more it connects to other stuff.
That's what's so cool about tech. It's all interconnected. The ENG podcast give a great example. They were talking about how AI and blockchain could actually work together.
Really? Those two seem totally different.
I know, right? But imagine your personal data being stored on a blockchain, super secure, and then AI is used to analyze it, but in a way that protects your privacy.
Whoa, hold on. So you're saying AI could give us insights from data without actually seeing the sensitive stuff?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Still early days, but the potential is huge, GE.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So learning about these different technologies, it's not just separate pieces of information. It's like,
More like a puzzle, yeah. Each piece helps you understand the bigger picture.
totally. Okay, what else did the ENG podcast recommend?
Well, beyond staying informed, they talked a lot about developing digital skills.
Right, because even if we're not all going to be programmers,
We still need a certain level of digital literacy to navigate this world.
it's almost like knowing how to read and write, but for the 21st century.
I like that analogy. They gave the example of someone in marketing, you know?
Right. They might not be coding websites,
Right.
but they need to understand algorithms, data analytics, all that stuff.
It's about being comfortable using technology to achieve your goals, whatever those goals may be.
And honestly, there are so many resources out there to help us learn. Online courses, YouTube tutorials, even free coding boot camps.
It's amazing. Anyone can pick up these skills if they're willing to put in a little time and effort.
I've actually been thinking about taking a course on data visualization. Seems like a useful skill to have no matter what you do.
Absolutely. And it's never too late to start learning. Which brings us to the third point, adapting to change.
Oof, that one hits close to home.
Uh-huh.
I'm not always the best with change, gotta admit.
I think a lot of people feel that way. But technology moves so fast, we have to adapt.
It's like the one constant IS change, especially in the tech world.
The ENG podcast had a really interesting take on it, though. They said we should see change not as a threat, but as an opportunity.
Okay, I like that. Reframing it.
Yeah.
Because it's true. Change can be scary, but it can also be exciting.
It's all about perspective. The more comfortable we are with change, the better equipped we'll be for the future.
Because who knows what crazy tech is coming down the pipeline, right?
Exactly. And that's where the ENG podcast's final point comes in. Advocating for ethical tech.
Oh yeah, we can't just sit back and let whatever happens happen. We got to be proactive.
It's about shaping technology in a way that aligns with our values, making sure it's used for good.
Totally. But honestly, it can feel daunting. Like, how much impact can one person really have?
Well, more than you might think. They suggested a few things, like supporting organizations that are fighting for ethical tech development.
Okay. Any examples come to mind?
They mentioned the Algorithm Justice League, working to combat bias in AI, and the Electronic Frontier Foundation, advocating for digital privacy.
I've heard of the EFF. They do some great work.
Right. And don't underestimate the power of simply talking about these issues, raising awareness with friends and family.
Yeah, having those conversations can make a difference, getting people thinking about the implications of tech.
Exactly. And then there's always the option of contacting your elected officials, advocating for policies that promote ethical tech.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. It's like we have more power than we realize.
We do. And the ENG podcast, they really drove that home. It's not just about accepting the future, it's about shaping it.
It's a powerful message for sure. So where do we go from here? What's the next step in all of this?
Well, before we dive into specific actions you can take, I think it's important to pause and reflect
Reflect on what?
on our own relationship with technology. The ENG podcast had this great question they asked. Are we using tech or is it using US?
Oh man, that's deep. It's easy to get caught up in the convenience and the novelty,
Yeah.
but we need to be mindful.
Exactly. And that's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive.
Yeah, that question really makes you stop and think, are we in control or are we letting tech control us?
It's easy to fall into that trap without even realizing it.
Totally. We become so reliant on these tools, we forget how to do things the old-fashioned way.
The ENG podcast gave the example of GPS navigation. Super helpful, right?
Yeah, I use it all the time.
But if we rely on it too much, what happens to our sense of direction, our ability to read a map?
Okay, that's a good point. I've definitely had moments where I felt totally lost without my phone.
It's almost like we're outsourcing parts of our brains to our devices.
And it's not just practical skills, is it?
Right. The ENG podcast argued that over-reliance on technology could actually affect our thinking.
Like, how so?
Well, they talked about how algorithms are constantly filtering information for us, suggesting what to watch, what to read, what to buy.
And that's convenient, but
But are we missing out on things we might have discovered on our own? Are we becoming less curious, less creative?
I see what you mean. It's like we're letting algorithms think for us.
In a way, yeah. And the ENG podcast, they weren't saying technology is bad, not at all.
Right. It's all about finding that balance.
Exactly. Using technology to enhance our lives, not take over.
So how do we do that? How do we strike that balance?
Well, they had an interesting suggestion. They called it a technology detox.
A detox. Like for our phones.
Not necessarily giving up tech entirely, but taking a break from certain devices or platforms.
For how long? Like a day? A week?
It could be whatever works for you. The point is to disconnect for a bit. Give yourself a chance to reset.
I kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
It's like hitting the pause button on all the digital noise.
Exactly. Or reconnect with yourself, with nature, with the simple things.
See what it's like to live without constant notifications and updates.
You might be surprised at what you discover.
I think we'd try it. Maybe start with a weekend without social media?
I bet you'll feel refreshed, more present, more in control.
That's the goal. Okay, so you've talked a lot about the impact of technology, both good and bad.
And we've explored ways to be more mindful, more intentional about how we use it.
So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. The future of technology is not predetermined.
It's not just something that's happening to us, right?
Exactly. We have the power to shape it through the choices we make, the actions we take.
Whether it's staying informed, developing digital skills, advocating for ethical tech, or simply taking a break from our devices.
All these things matter. They all contribute to creating the future we want to see.
A future where technology empowers us, connects us, and helps us build a better world.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of technology. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep thinking about these questions, keep exploring these ideas, and keep shaping the future of technology.